This Place in History. We're in East Barre with Steve Perkins, the Executive Director of the Vermont Historical Society.
Behind us is the East Barre Dam. It's part of three major civilian conservation corps projects along the Winooski River here to mitigate further flooding after, of course, the catastrophic floods of November 2nd, 1927. What happened right here was completely military. And so this is unique within the CCC. The flood control design was created by the Army Corps of Engineers, and all of the men who served building these flood control were military veterans.
They had just been in the bonus army following World War I.
So World War I vets were all promised a bonus, and they were given a certificate for that bonus, but the bonus didn't mature until 1945. Of course, the Depression hits, and all of these men are like, we need to be paid.
Right.
We put our lives, our health, everything on the line.
Which led to mass demonstrations in Washington to try to obtain these things.
Yes, 1932, they occupied the mall, the Capitol grounds, and they were dispersed by force.
Yep.
And that was under the presidency of Herbert Hoover. Some say part of what led to his not being elected and Franklin Delano Roosevelt coming in. So the bonus army came back again. After Roosevelt was elected in 1933, Roosevelt had an idea. He said, well, we can't pay the bonus, but I can employ all of you. And they were organized into CCC divisions. And those are the folks that came here to Vermont. Many of them were from the South. And so getting used to Vermont winters was very difficult for these guys. And they were quarrying the granite that was used as the riprap here in the middle of the winter, and we'd ride up there and open-backed trucks. Of course, we had local kids threw snowballs at all the workers. But, you know, that was a universal experience. Another one was for what they were paid, it was hard to get home. They kind of got lonely. But another big universal experience was that of camaraderie. It was bringing back how they had that experience when they were together in the Army. And it was great for the local economy because you had all these men here. Of course, when they got paid, they were looking for something to do. And so a lot of, especially alcohol sellers and concert venues, saw a lot of patronage.
It's easy to understand how that would be given that Prohibition had just been lifted at that time.
And what's really interesting for Vermont at this time as well is there were black units. Unfortunately, we're talking about the 1930s, and so the 1930s military and the CCC was segregated. Here in East Barre, there were two white companies and two black companies. One of the black companies had members of the famed Harlem Hellfighters. And that is the only unit from the United States that was awarded the French Croix de Guerre for gallantry in World War I. And there are reflections on some of the black soldiers saying, you know, they were fine with their experience, but felt that you know, a lot of Vermonters maybe hadn't seen black people before and were wary about them. But very little reports of negative Vermont interactions.
Okay.
More of the interactions, the negative interactions, were between black companies and white companies. Please come visit us at the Vermont History Center in Barre with very extensive library and archives, especially on this particular project, the Winooski Valley Flood Control Project of the Civilian Conservation Corps.
We're learning about the veterans who built the flood control measures at This Place in History.